Hello and welcome back to the Road to Good Cooking, and today I'm going to finish up the project that I started on the last video where I was showing you how I dehydrated onions and my caramelized onions. Well, here are the finished dehydrated onions, and they turned out absolutely wonderful, and they smell, oh my God, my house smells so good. But anyway, what I did this time when I dehydrated my onions, I lined my trays with parchment paper, and it made for easier cleanup, and it was so easy to handle them. And when I took the trays out, I wasn't losing my onions falling out on the floor and all over the counter, and it just made for a lot easier process this time. Plus, my dehydrator only came with one mesh screen, which I'll show you here in a few seconds. And I didn't understand that because I have 6 trays here, and you would think that it would have come with 6 mesh screens, but it didn't. And I'm so cheap, I'm not going to buy them. I'm going to use this parchment paper. It's a lot easier to use. And like I said, it makes for easier cleanup. And here I am putting my minced onions in the jar here. This will go on my spice rack right next to my stove. And the rest of them I'm putting in my NutriBullet, and I will be crushing those up and making them and turning my onions into onion powder. And when you start making your own onion powder, you will be amazed at the difference in the flavor, because there's nothing in here but just onions. And some people I've seen, they put cornstarch in there to keep it from caking up, but I don't worry about that, because if it cakes up, I'm just going to take my wire whisk and whisk it up. It's no big deal, or stir it up with a spoon. No big deal. And in this batch, you can see some of the red onions that I dehydrated, and they turned out absolutely fantastic. And see, there's the mesh screen that I was telling you about. It only came with one mesh screen like this. And you really need that mesh screen to keep things from falling through and, losing doesn't make any sense doing all this work and then lose half your product because it fell out on the floor when you took the screens out. And look at that onion powder. Look at this. Oh yeah. And it's good on everything. And here I'm adding my onion powder to the jar, and this will go on my spice rack right next to my stove. Remember in the last video I was showing you my dehydrated mixed veggies? Well, I decided to grind them up, and I made me some veggie powder seasoning, and I'm going to add the rest of my dehydrated onions that I turned into onion powder. And I think I added some garlic to this one too. This is the second batch I've made, and this veggie powder is good on all veggies, whether you saute them, or the other day I made some French fries and sprinkled some on there, and it was absolutely amazing. Veggie seasoning. Who knew it would taste so doggone good? And this too is going on my spice rack next to my stove. And here's my finished chicken broth, and I ended up with 2 quarts. I used 1 quart a couple of days ago, and I made me a delicious pot of soup. This broth is thick, it's savory, it's absolutely delicious. You can eat it all by itself. Just make you some crusty bread and dip that bread in there. And I'm finished with this part of the project. I'm sure I'm going to be making me another pot of soup, so I'm going to leave my last quart of broth in the refrigerator, and everything else is going up on my spice rack. This month I bought 6 pounds of fresh jalapenos because I have a couple of projects that I wanted to try, and the first one being a recipe from my buddy Nate over at White Thunder Barbecue. And I will put his link in the description box below. And make sure you check out his recipe. He has a whole series of hot sauce recipes. And he grows his own peppers. And all of his recipes look absolutely amazing. This is the first one I'm trying. And I'm sure I'm going to try several others because I fell in love with this one. The only thing is, Nate, my hot sauce came out a little bit thicker. It's almost the consistency of salsa, which is fine because I'm going to, put it on my Mexican food or whatever else I want to put it on. So I'm not so much worried about having it in a shaker type bottle, but it's okay. I'll spoon it on, and it really did turn out fantastic, my friend. You did an excellent job on this recipe. Now the only thing I changed, I substituted the honey for raw sugar because I really don't buy honey. I don't really care for the flavor of honey, so I use raw sugar instead. That was the only change that I made. In this video clip, I just sliced up the jalapenos, and I'm getting ready to chop up the onions and the garlic. All of my peppers and onions are cut up, and I added a splash of olive oil to my Dutch oven pot here, and I'm just going to saute the peppers and onions until they kind of soften up a little bit. And I'm going to add some salt to taste. I'm going to add some crushed black pepper to taste. Give it a good stir. I'm adding the 2 cups of water and the 1 cup of white vinegar. I'm adding my turbinado sugar. I'm using raw sugar because, like I said before, I don't really care for the taste of honey. So I'm just going to put enough raw sugar in here to taste. Give it another quick stir. And right now I have my heat on medium-high, and I'm going to reduce the heat down, cover up the pot with the lid because these fumes are going to get crazy in here. And I'm going to let it simmer for about 15-20 minutes. And here it is after about 15-20 minutes or so. And you can see the color has changed from the real bright green to almost like an olive green now, and that's fine. And I'm going to transfer them to a blender, and I'm going to whip them up until they are nice and smooth. And I wasn't kidding about the fumes. The fumes in here are crazy. And here I'm whipping them up, and see, it's getting nice and smooth. After I blended up my hot sauce nice and smooth, I poured it through a fine mesh sieve, put it back in the pot, and I'm going to let it simmer. Now don't think I'm going to throw this away. I will process it in my next dehydrating video. Remember what I always say, waste not, want not. Poured my hot sauce back into the Dutch oven pan. I added a little bit more raw sugar to it and a little bit more of my onion powder. You can never have enough onion powder. I'm sorry. It's just so good in everything. So I just loaded it up with the onion powder. I'm going to let it simmer for a few minutes, and then I'll taste it again to see if I need to add any more salt or pepper. Looks good, doesn't it? Now it seems a little bit thinner this time, so I think it's going to be just fine. Give it a quick taste to see if I need to adjust the salt and the pepper any or anything else. And it tastes absolutely wonderful. No need to add anything else to it. I'm going to let my sauce continue to simmer while I prepare my jars for canning. Once again, I set out the smoke alarm. Whenever I roast peppers, I'm forever setting out that smoke alarm. Actually, whenever I'm searing something on the stove or making these peppers, I set the smoke alarm off. So I guess it's kind of a safety precaution because I do live in an old folks joint and they want to make sure nobody burns the place down. This month, I bought more produce than I normally do, and I know I'm not going to go through all these peppers before they go bad, so I'm going to roast them up today and pressure cook them. That way I have them on my pantry shelf whenever I get ready to use them. Here's my peppers after I roasted them up, and I put them in glass bowls and covered them up with plastic wrap, and I'm going to let them sit here and sweat for about 30-45 minutes or so. I cleaned off my stove because it does make a mess on the stove when you char them on the stove like that. And aside from setting off the smoke alarm, they turned out pretty doggone good. I don't know why I always set off that doggone smoke alarm. Good Lord. For some unknown reason, I lost my video footage for preparing my roasted peppers here to the left and the jalapeno hot sauce, as well as the Cowboy candy seen up there in the upper right-hand corner. And when you guys hear us content creators complain about the struggle, believe me, the content creator struggle is real. This month I purchased 6 pounds of jalapeno peppers, and with those jalapeno peppers I'm making some jalapeno jelly. I made some jalapeno hot sauce and some Cowboy candy, which is candied jalapenos. And that recipe was inspired by my friend Tessa over at Modern Homesteading with Tessa. And I also had the recipe in my ball canning book, and it turned out so good. I will put the link to Tessa's channel in the description box below, and she smoked her peppers. I wish I could smoke mine, but being as I live in this old folks joint, they don't allow you to fire up smokers and barbecuers and all that stuff, so I had to do mine the old-fashioned way, but it still turned out really, really, really good. And what I ended up doing was putting a whole jar into this jalapeno jelly recipe, and it turned out so good. My new way of making jalapeno jelly now. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now, and I'm going to put on some music for you guys like I always do, so sit back and watch me work. We are done with this pepper project, and here's all my jalapeno jellies. The one with the label on it, this one right here, I'm going to give to my maintenance guy because he loves my cooking too, and the rest of them are going to go in my pantry. I have them all dated, so they're going in the pantry. There's my roasted peppers. So good. I see endless possibilities with my peppers, making some pasta sauce or some fajitas. There's my jalapeno hot sauce, and this little jar right here is going in the fridge. Looks good, doesn't it? And the other 2 pints are going on in my pantry, and there's my Cowboy candy, and it is absolutely delicious. This little guy right here, that's going in the fridge, and the rest of them are going in my pantry. And there's the brine left over from my Cowboy candy, and I've been using that as a marinade. And I marinated some chicken wings a couple of nights ago, and it was off the charts. So I feel like I got my money's worth with those 6 pounds of jalapenos, and I tell you what, I'm happy that I did it. And for those of you living in the Las Vegas area, make sure you check out La Bonita Supermarket. The produce is wonderful. The service was great. I had absolutely no issues with my produce at all. I highly recommend La Bonita. If this is the first time visiting my channel, thank you so much for stopping by and spending a few minutes of your time with me. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up button and leave me a comment if you wish. I answer all of my comments, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up button and the notification bell. That way you'll be notified each and every time I upload a video. And this is the second of 3 videos of my produce grocery haul. I have one more coming at you, so stay tuned. You're going to love this one. And yes, I had to make myself some tacos so I can try my jalapeno hot sauce and my Cowboy candy, and it was absolutely delicious. So thanks for stopping by. Be blessed and keep on cooking.